giving you a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Neutral Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today I'm joined by Dr. Allan and Peter Krause. Thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
We're in a brand new studio, which is actually temporary because our new one's being built out. But we set this up for today to talk to these guys. And so I think, Peter, if you could give us a little background on kind of yourself and what your fitness journey has been, that would be great.
Yeah. So I've been working in fitness for about 16 years now. Started in dietetics, went to school to get my dietetics degree. And while in school for dietetics, I was approached to work at a local Anytime Fitness as a personal trainer, just as interim while one of the trainers was out of town. I very quickly fell in love with the process. I loved working with people one-on-one, loved the ability to take my knowledge from fitness through pretty much sport up to that point, playing football, doing a little bit of triathlon before then, and applying that directly to my clients. But also having that interpersonal communication and just one-on-one conversation with these people that allowed me to find out what their goals are, what are their setbacks, what are their fears, and help them to get through those things and accomplish really big goals, short-term and long-term. So that all started in 2009. And upon the completion of that kind of interim takeover for this guy, I was given a job as a trainer after that. He actually just gave me his clients. Then he started picking up his own after that. And then from there, I was very quickly elevated to manager of all the trainers in that space, and then took over a secondary gym. And next thing you know, I was the number one training manager in the country for Anytime Fitness at the time. At least I was for that franchise. That was the number one franchise in the country. So I consider it the best gym in the country. And we were repping off 160 sessions at a time in packages, $4 or $5 grand a pop, and selling, I want to say like 20 to 30 sessions a day of personal training. And I enjoyed the sales side of it. I enjoyed the management. I enjoyed the one-on-one training side of it. And all that while I was doing some modeling on the side. And that modeling also started to take off at that time. So I was doing a little bit too much work in Chicago with my modeling to the point where they kind of gave me the ultimatum. Either I quit modeling or I give up the management side of it. So I decided to pursue the modeling because it was going so well at the time, and moved down to Chicago and ended up working at a couple of kind of like mom and pop gyms down there. So I went from a very corporate setting in Anytime Fitness to a very unconventional setting called ID Gym, where it was small group training, classes, personal training. I worked the front desk. I did the cleaning on the weekends, and I got to know kind of both sides of the industry pretty quickly in my career. Then in 2012, I completed my second Ironman, and in doing so, decided I wanted another kind of like challenge in life. So I moved out to LA to advance my career even more so in modeling and acting at that point. And while I was out there, I worked for Equinox. So now I got to see like the best of the best when it came to fitness. I was in the number one gym basically in the country in West Hollywood. I was working with celebrities and CEOs and very well-to-do people, and had to really increase my knowledge because I had to improve upon these people or impress upon these people that I knew what I was talking about. So I really started to educate myself more and more through that process, and got to a point where it's like, well, I can do this on my own. Why do I keep working for somebody else? Basically at that point. So I started an in-home personal training business, and very quickly started to pick up some clients just through ads in the paper at that time, and Facebook, just posting things on Facebook, reaching out to people directly in LA through connections. And then in 2014, came back to Madison to do my third Ironman, and decided that I wanted to go full on into business on my own with personal training. So I started an in-home personal training business in 2014. Within the first year, I went from $0 to $100,000 a year in sales, hired on 2 more trainers. We almost doubled our income within that second year. And then I went on television. And so television, once again, kind of sidetracked the career, but it always stayed one of the mainstays within my life. As a trainer, as a fitness coach, as an entrepreneur within fitness and all that. And so after getting off of television, I had amassed this grouping of about 500,000 followers on Instagram. to where I could start posting, hey, I'm going to be in this city on this date, come work out with me. And I'd have 400 to 500 people show up, and I'd charge $45 a head for these people. And I decided to create a secondary business. So I do personal training as well as classes. These classes ended up getting picked up by a corporate sponsor. And so I was training in NBA arenas, MLB stadiums, all this stuff, and was charging $45 a person, got upwards of 600 people sometimes per boot camp, and decided to just put all that money away to eventually create my own gym. And then you actually approached me while we were working together, teaching classes at a place called Camps here in town, and had a perfect space. That was my first gym location in Middleton, and that was in 2019 that opened. And that was my first brick and mortar. And I was still doing the boot camps on the side. So I was kind of paying my own bills, paying the bills of the gym, and then starting to figure out who I was and what I was doing within the gym industry. And so I had taken all the knowledge from Equinox, all the knowledge from Anytime Fitness. I took like the training side of it. I took the classes side of it. I took the 24-hour access side of it and put it all within to this gym. And then the pandemic hit. And so like every year to 18 months, I would say my business in fitness just kept evolving to where it finally is now. And that's, I work directly with personal clients, but then I also do the 24-hour access within apartment complexes. And I give access to their tenants and then apply or supply a service to all of their folks, as well as people off the street. And I gain all of my revenue off of people doing personal training, contrast therapy, 24-hour access, and then also have those people coming in from the apartment complexes. And so that's where we are now.
Cool.
Yeah.
And now we have the next journey.
Yeah. And so now it's going into neutral and trying to apply all that I've learned through all these things and all of the knowledge that I've gained, especially within PK Fit and going through a pandemic. The expansion, we're at 5 gyms now with 3 more being built through PK Fit. Some partnerships coming up that could get us into the dozens, if not hundreds, within the next few years. And so I really think I can take all of that, apply to neutral on a bigger, grander scale with some actual funding, because I did all this with basically no money left in my pocket. What could I do with some actual backing and support, partnership with you guys, additional knowledge, all that.
Yeah, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But before we get there, Dr. Allan, do you want to give us a 5-minute cliffhanger on your background?
Sure. So my background is, of course, I'm a physician. I trained in emergency medicine and medical toxicology, and then embarked on an academic career at University of Wisconsin, doing research, bench research, transitioned from that into administration, and then out into private practice, where I've been doing emergency medicine for about 20 years now. I've noticed over the course of that career path that there are some fundamental flaws in the way that we provide healthcare to people. It's very reactionary. There's not a good focus on prevention. There's not a good focus on screening. I routinely see people in the emergency department who are suffering from illnesses that could have easily been addressed 5-10 years ago, and they would have avoided an emergency department visit, but that wasn't available to them. And so they would present to the emergency department in a crisis, and we'd manage that crisis. I've developed a genuine interest in helping people to avoid that situation. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by making healthcare accessible to people. I've noticed that it doesn't necessarily depend on what your means are. Healthcare can be difficult to access, whether you have resources or don't have resources. So making healthcare accessible, focusing on prevention and screening, collaborating with our fitness and wellness colleagues to integrate not just prevention, but also wellness into what we do. So a real collaborative model.
And what have you seen in your years of experience of why people aren't doing some of these, what seems like basic kind of necessities day to day?
So it's kind of multifactorial. Number one, I would say there's a knowledge deficit. So people don't know what they need to do to stay healthy. And that's in, the realm of nutrition, fitness, in terms of screening for underlying illness, in terms of managing those illnesses. And that need not be. People should have access to a medical clinic that not only provides the care that they need, but also educates them so that they know so that they can be empowered and go out and take care of themselves. And I see our role as being really a partner with our patients and with our clients to help them achieve those goals.
And what have you seen in like your kind of emergency room medicine setting where someone comes in, like, let's just say with high cholesterol? And is there something that they could have done where this offering would have fixed their high cholesterol problem where it wouldn't lead to these huge emergency room visits?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. So the kind of the worst case scenario of somebody having mismanaged or unmanaged hypercholesterolemia, high cholesterol, is that they can have a heart attack or a stroke. And those are devastating illnesses. They can even be life-threatening. That is a problem that's been present for many years at that point. It didn't start when they turned 50. It's been there since they were a teenager. And slowly over time, their vascular disease has manifested. We can screen for that early on and treat it. There's no reason why people have to be suffering from cardiovascular disease in this day and age. We've got so many tools at our disposal, but we have to help people get access to that screening and then access to the care that they need to prevent disease from progressing.
Yeah, because one thing I think we've talked about a lot is like a lot of these things that you've told us about, Dr. Allan, like high cholesterol, colon cancer, diabetes, poor cardiovascular health, high blood pressure, all these different, like, kind of what seems like very easy to fix diseases are what sounds like, from your experience, lead to these big emergency room visits, which then lead to all these unnecessary kind of causes. And so do you think that if we have a better structure from a medical perspective, that all these kind of what seems like easy fixes will actually be easy fixes?
Yes, it requires a very different orientation, though. Historically, we think of your medical care as being very isolated and separate from the rest of your life. What we need to do is integrate the two so that when we're thinking about managing our blood pressure or our high cholesterol or our fitness, it's really integrated into one singular approach. What we aim to do at the clinic is to help give people that guidance and that knowledge that they need so that they can maintain their fitness, their muscle mass, their VO2 max. We know that if people are not addressing those things, that they're at risk for illness as they get older. They're more prone to falls, which can result in a significant injury, which can then cascade into other problems, especially for our patients who are, in their 60s and 70s. A broken bone, a broken hip is devastating and really impactful on their quality of life. And so we want to prevent that from happening. Same thing with high blood pressure, high glucose, diabetes. All of these things are manageable early on and can prevent that cascade of illness that lands people in the hospital or, homebound or, unable to participate in the things that they want to participate in.
Yeah, that's something that you kind of introduced me to when we had our initial diagnostic, which for the listeners, I went through the rigorous Dr. Allan diagnostic and found out I eat too much red meat and have too high of cholesterol, but I'm working on it. So one thing you introduced me to was this idea of health span versus lifespan, and how do we expand the health span so that that marginal decade of someone between 70 and 80 or 80 and 90, whatever their life expectancy is, actually they're able to do things that they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk a little bit more about that and how some of these minor tweaks that we're kind of offering might help people be able to expand their health span?
Yeah. Yeah. And just to clarify that idea, so we think of, we contrast health span to lifespan. So your lifespan being the chronological duration of your life, and your health span being the duration of your life in which you're healthy. And what we would like to do is have your health span match your lifespan as closely as we can. And it really is a matter of small incremental change over the course of your life that's going to impact your last decade, that marginal decade. And it comes back to the fundamentals. We really have to focus on those pillars of wellness. So nutrition, fitness, sleep, stress management, avoiding risky habits, such as I always use the example of not smoking. Not too many people are smoking these days, but that's an example of one of those risky behaviors. Wearing your seatbelt, right? I mean, odds are you're not going to get into a car accident, but it happens to people. So we want to do those things that we know reduce the likelihood of us having an injury or an illness as we go through the course of our life. Yeah, so those are the small incremental changes that are impactful over the course of your lifetime.
Awesome. Let's transition real quick into what we're doing at Neutral with both Peter and Dr. Allan, and then we'll kind of go into how we're thinking about this from a kind of holistic well-being standpoint. But the reason why we're having Dr. Allan and Peter come on the show, one, it's fascinating to hear both their backstories and kind of listen to how we can expand our health span. But also at Neutral, we're really looking at how can we integrate this more holistic well-being lifestyle into our buildings. Because one thing that Dr. Allan and I have talked a lot about is there's no easy way to really put these kind of initiatives and protocols in place unless you have easy access to it. So by way of example, if a fitness facility or gym is an hour away, you're probably not going to go there every day. Whereas if it's in your basement or it's downstairs on the second floor, like it is in our buildings, you're more likely to go and use those facilities every day. Or if your clinical facility that you see your doctor is in the same building, then you're more likely to use that versus drive 2 hours to go see someone at maybe Mayo Clinic. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that we have is not only how do we build our buildings to be really focused on improving people's lives by better air quality, access to fresh water, access to daylight, but also integrating some of these kind of key facilities that people use daily to actually help them expand their health span. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one reason why we wanted to kind of define that early on here in the podcast, is because really it's the things you do daily that help you. It's not that you go to Mayo Clinic and you do their executive health program for a week and it's like some magical heavenly fix that you're going to be okay for the rest of your life. It's rather this kind of more daily habits that you employ that kind of helps you. And so maybe if you could, both of you, walk us through, like if someone comes and lives at Neutral, what's their experience going to be like when they come and actually do the full diagnostic, which is a little bit rigorous, but it's worth it, I promise. Mm-hmm. And then what does their kind of daily lifestyle look like as far as just living in the building? And maybe Peter, you start with the fitness side, and then Dr. Allan, you go into the clinical side.
Yeah, I think on the fitness side of it's where we see people the most. So it's the easiest place to start because it's where people are going to spend the most time. Dr. Allan's position, all this is just as important. It's just they'll see him probably a little bit less. Mm-hmm. They'll see him for the diagnostics, the treatments, conversations, and all that. He'll do a lot of the planning and implementation of these programs for them, but then we'll actually do the hands-on work with those people. So we'll be doing what we call flex training, which is a setup training style where people come in with a preferred program for them, a designed program for them. They perform that exercise or that workout that day within that space with our trainer, our certified trainer on staff, making sure they're doing it correctly, making modifications as necessary, and also just checking in with them before and after the workout, during, whatever. From there, we're seeing them every day as they come in on their own. We're cheering them on. We're helping them out. We're answering questions about anything they have, from nutrition to aches and pains that they have to what their heart rate should be during certain exercises, or the day-to-day. That's more, I would say, like the micro scale. And then on the more macro scale, I say they're going to Dr. Allan. We're giving that pass off with all of the knowledge that we've attained through our initial diagnostic, which we're calling a movement analysis. And then the conversations that we have, the goal setting and all that we have with them. And then giving that information to Dr. Allan so he can go to a much deeper level and figure out what they need long term. And then he'll pass them back to us. And then we can do exactly what he's kind of set out for them with fitness, with daily uptake or upkeep with nutrition. We're doing a micro spa in space, which is going to be sauna, cold plunge, and steam shower, making sure they're doing those things for, the weekly, bi-weekly, whatever regimens where they're working on inflammation, stress reduction. If they have high blood pressure, it can help with that. If they have high blood sugar, we can help with that. All that just in the movement and then the kind of like recovery aspect of it.
But when someone signs a lease with us with neutral, they're going to be able to get that for basically complimentary as part of their lease.
Yep.
And then as part of the clinical experience, Dr. Allan, I know you have a lot of kind of rigorous things, but maybe explain exactly what they're getting complimentary and how it integrates with the fitness and nutrition side.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I think first off, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Peter was saying. And I think what he was getting to is that we're building a community that's health and fitness aligned, so that the things that I recommend for people in clinic, they can then go and act on. So often I hear from people that they go to see their primary care doctor who tells them, you need to exercise better, you need to eat better, and that's the extent of the advice. So when I tell people that, I say, you're going to go and see Peter, and he's going to help you act on those recommendations. And so it's really a collaborative, integrated approach to our tenants, clients, patients' wellness. So when people come to see me for that initial evaluation in the clinic, of course, it's in the same building. It starts with a detailed history. So I want to know your family history, your personal medical history, your challenges that you've had. I want to know what your goals are in working together. Where do you want to get to? And then we customize an evaluation that really targets those areas of need and helps you to accelerate your progress to reach your goals. And so that'll involve, as a start, beyond that history, a physical exam. We'll do an EKG. We do laboratory testing. And then in follow-up, we review all of those things and kind of fine-tune the plan of care for you. We do VO2 max testing and DEXA scan imaging to look at your overall fitness and your body composition. And that also informs our plan of care. For example, if somebody has a real deficit in their muscle mass, we might recommend that they work with Peter to increase that muscle mass. If somebody has a really deficient VO2 max, meaning their aerobic capacity is really low, the fitness plan may be a little different. But that fitness plan is going to be integrated with the medical plan. So if our patient has an underlying problem, such as like a known diagnosis, such as diabetes, we're going to make sure that that's optimally managed. Similarly, we're going to screen for underlying diseases so that things don't go undiagnosed and untreated over a period of years, where they can ultimately manifest in something serious. So it's very much a personalized program where we dive deep into your history. We do lots of screening. We focus on prevention. We optimize treatment, and we collaborate with our fitness and wellness colleagues to make sure that all of those recommendations that I give you from the medical side get implemented.
Yeah. And I think that's the key point here is that, when you go to like Equinox or Lifetime, you're going to go and sit down with a personal trainer. They're not really going to have any data for you. They're just going to basically look at you and kind of size you up, maybe put you on a scale and say, this is the plan that you should be following to meet whatever goals you have. But that personal trainer never talks to your primary care at your physician, right? Or if they do, it's maybe very rarely that they do. And you're paying a lot of money for that. And so this is like where we kind of started, Dr. Allan, where I think you were really frustrated by being in the kind of traditional medical field where there's no integration here or conversation between the fitness and nutrition providers and the clinicians. This is really everything's under one roof. And when you come, you get a full diagnostic really to tell you where you're at. And I think the beauty of this is like, you can't hide anything. Like you're doing blood panels, you're doing a DEXA to tell you your body composition, you're doing an RMR to tell you how much you're burning per day, you're doing VO2 max to tell your cardiovascular health. Peter wants to have the strength training machine that tells you how much your muscles can push. But basically, like you're getting everything on paper, right? So at least you know, hey, these are my flaws. This is what's wrong with me, good or bad. And hey, here's how we can improve. And then putting an action plan together to actually do that. Because I think a lot of times, like I haven't been to the doctor for probably 4 years.
Well, until you came to see me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now I go every day.
Now you need to go more often, apparently.
But I mean, the last time I went to the doctor, my wife was like, Nate, you have to get a physical. You haven't gotten a physical for like 5 years. And I go and it's an hour and a half experience. The doctor comes in for 5 minutes, takes my heart, she like does some other things. And he's like, you look good. Are you working out? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, you're fine. Keep doing whatever you're doing. Yeah. And it's like, he has no idea what I'm doing. And I could have some sort of weird disease that I'm going to die in 5 years.
Yeah. There's a huge disconnect between what people anticipate happening at their primary care provider visit versus what actually happens. And a lot of that ties into the healthcare model that we have, the business of medicine. Primary care providers they provide great care. They work incredibly hard. They're incredibly knowledgeable, but the financial model just doesn't support being able to sit down with somebody for an hour or an hour and a half and really diving into their history and their goals and their obstacles and coming up with something that is really unique for them. Like you say, it's at most a 15-minute visit. You spend 45 minutes in the waiting room. You get some labs drawn, probably not even the ideal panel of labs that you need. And it's sort of like a box is checked. You've done your annual physical and you're out the door. If you ask for specific nutrition or fitness advice, you're not going to get it. Even if you ask to be referred to a dietitian, there are barriers to that. When people go to their primary care provider and they're otherwise healthy, but they want nutrition advice and they ask for referral to a dietitian, oftentimes that's not covered in their plan because they don't have an underlying diagnosis such as diabetes that justifies it being paid for. So we aim to circumvent that and really make sure that we're giving people that advice. Advice, mentorship, instruction. I think that this model really boils down to people having access. So they have access to me in these visits when we sit down and talk about their medical care. They have access to me whenever they have any questions about anything. They have access to Peter regularly. Like you were saying, they probably have more time spent on the fitness side than the medical side, but regardless, patients can access you at all times. They can access me at all times, and we collaborate and share information. So I think that's the beauty of the program.
Yeah, I think that is. I think one thing I really liked after going through it was I felt like for the first time in my whole life, I got a good picture of like, this is where I'm currently at, and here's what you should watch out for. I had some certain things show up in my genealogy that there was kind of pre-existing conditions that I need to kind of look out for as I get older. And then it also gave me a good baseline of like, okay, here's what I want to improve. So like one thing, when we did the diagnostic last summer, my VO2 max was 56 and you're like, that's crap, Nate, you need to improve it. And now I got up to 58. And so, but it's like those little data points are really helpful because it kind of gives you something to motivate you to be like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym today, even when I don't necessarily feel like going to the gym, but I want to get my data point up to whatever it is. It's 60 or 70 or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. These things can be highly motivating. The flip side of that is that, when people have red flags in their physiologic testing or their physical exam or their history, we can oftentimes predict what's going to happen to them over the next decade or 2 decades or 3 decades. And that's the time frame that we're looking at. Certainly if you have an acute problem, we want to help you with that, today. But we're aiming to have you living in your 70s and your 80s and ideally your 90s with a minimal disease burden, being very functional, having a really high quality of life and enjoying yourself. And, these things are attainable, but people have to actively engage in those activities and behaviors that help them get there. And we aim to help people learn those skills.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of this is it is so integrated because I think there are other kind of health and longevity facilities that you can go to that do a great job focusing specifically on the longevity. But I think where we really bring kind of a holistic approach is having Peter involved on the fitness and nutrition side, and then having it all be under neutral, and you're actually able to live in these facilities. And so the ease of access is unbelievable. Maybe Peter, if you could just walk us through, for someone coming off the streets or someone living in the building, what does that kind of like initial onboarding trial period look like for just Joe Smith coming off the street?
Yeah, so that goes back to the movement analysis I brought up.
Yep.
So our certified trainers, all of our trainers will be certified. They will put this person through a series of specific movements that will figure out certain patterns and where the inaccuracies in those patterns may lie. And then from there, they'll just take notes, scale of usually like 0 to 3. 0 being they can't even do it, 3 doing they do it with perfection. From there, it's maybe like 10, let's say, sequences. And then they'll just have them walk, check their gait, see if everything looks fine there. Check mobility, range of motion, balance. It's a very, I would say, low impact, easy fitness test. From there, we'll go into what Dr. Allan was bringing up with the movement, the DEXA scan and VO2 max. But really that first consult with our side of things is just getting to know the person, figuring out what their goals are, what their long-term hopes are, what their setbacks have been in the past, what's worked, what hasn't. We just really have just a one-on-one conversation with these people, trying to get to know them as much as we can. There's a very low risk, very low impact type of session for that first one-on-one, and then pass them off to Dr. Allan from there.
Yeah, very much a functional assessment.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas mine is much more medically oriented, but they're so complementary that again, that's the beauty of what we're doing here.
So when that person transitions over to you, Dr. Allan, what are they doing on day one?
So on day one, there's a handoff. Anything that is of significance that was identified by Peter's staff or Peter, they'll communicate that to me. And when the person comes into the clinic, we'll sit down in the consultation room and dive into our conversation. It's a medical evaluation, a medical appointment, but it really is probably better defined as a conversation. We take our time as long as we need to go through your whole medical history and identify those things that we really need to focus on, and then come up with a customized plan for you. From there, we move on to our physiologic testing, DEXA scans and VO2 max testing, and laboratory testing. Now, those may all occur on the same day, or we may break those up depending on the individual's schedule and needs. But then following that, there's a follow-up appointment to review everything in the same location.
And then, so after the follow-up, that's where we have our kind of initial trial period.
Yeah, once they get past back over to the fitness side of it, I think that's when things definitely intensify.
Yeah.
So someone's got a program that will be designed for them specifically by one of our certified trainers. That program can either be for the flex training that we talk about, where they're doing their own thing and our trainer's just there to check them.
Just pause on that, Peter.
Yeah.
Explain the flex training for us for a second.
Yeah. So flex is, you're going to have that initial consult with your trainer. You do your movement analysis. There's a very specific process to that movement analysis. After, 16 years in this business, I've seen where the initial consult with people can be way too much, way too intense. We don't want to drive someone out of the gym or pressure sale them just on the fact that they're out of shape. I saw that for years, where people would be put through a hard ass assessment, max reps in a minute, 7 exercises, make them want to puke at the end of it, then sit them down, convince them that they're overweight. They need to lose all this weight. And the only way they can do it is with a trainer. And here's how much it costs, and buy right now or else you're going to lose out. That's not our approach. The truth is that this is a person who has a history and they have a mind that has gotten to the point that they're in now. We want to dig deeper into that mind. And while doing that, we need to figure out what their body association is. Do they have a knowledge of general fitness? Can they hinge when we tell them to hinge? Can they squat when we tell them to squat? Can they do a walking lunge? Do they have the balance, coordination, and the know-how? All those things. Like I said, it's very light to start. And then once we get into the programming, it's like, okay, this person has a 0 out of 3 on that scale, or they have a 1 or a 3, whatever it may be. We're going to create a very specific program based off of those numbers and those findings, and then give that program to them to either do in this flex training, where they'll go in on their own, morning, evening, bricks that we will basically predetermine, and they'll perform that workout that we've given them. There'll be a trainer there on site that will be checking any person who's there on that flex training at the time. They'll be designated to that flex training program. So there's not a trainer that's working with their client while they're also saying, oh yeah, here, do this or do that, and taking time away from that person. They are specific to that program. And we'll make sure that we're giving proper cues. We're telling them to increase weights where needed. We'll see where there's maybe flaws in the program, if there are any. We can make sure that they're stretching afterwards. We're just giving them a high five and encouraging them as they're doing it. These workouts are meant to be challenging, not just to be like a cakewalk. So I'll make sure that they feel like they can not just do it, but they want to do it, and they feel accomplished when they're done with it. So that trainer really becomes much more important to the process post all this initial consult and all the diagnostics. That's one phase. Phase 2, the higher tier.
Just to pause on that.
Yeah.
With that phase though, they're taking all the data and the labs and everything from Dr. Allan.
Yes.
And that trainer is talking with Dr. Allan about, hey, they might have a specific need, or hey, they might really want to decrease their muscle to fat ratio. There might be something specific in the notes, right?
Yes.
That your trainer is talking with Dr. Allan and saying, okay, how do we actually tailor this program to adhere to what they're trying to achieve on the health side as well?
I mean, the biggest disconnect going back to that I have seen over the 16 years is really where people will get advice that's conflicting between their trainer and their physical therapist, let's say, or their doctor. I think a lot of people assume that when they come into the gym, it's strictly physical. So they may be talking to their doctor and then they're like, well, the doctor said that, so I'm going to not even take it into the gym. I'm not going to trust my trainer to have any thoughts or opinions or knowledge on this subject. Whereas like the physical therapist on the other side of it would be, I'm going to tell you to do this range of motion, but then the trainer is saying, well, I see you every day and I think you can do this range of motion. So there is constant communication now that was never there before. It's a whole new access to potential for this person in recovery, in achieving their goals, in bettering their health and all that I've never seen in 16 years. There were people being told as they're in pregnancy that they can't lift more than 25 pounds. And that was, I'm sure you've seen this before, very common. Any woman I had that was going through pregnancy was told they couldn't lift more than 25 pounds. Meanwhile, I'm seeing them being able to squat 100, 150, something like that with ease. And so I would love to have direct contact to that doctor to ask them why. I don't have to ask the client because the client's just going to trust their doctor. They've been with this person for 15, 20 years, developed a lot of trust. And not to mention it's the medical system. We're built to trust this. So I would love to be able to talk to that doctor myself and say, why 25 pounds? Why not 100? Why not 150? What is the risk to reward? Is it really as bad as you think? Or is it's just safer to say 25 pounds because that's the blanketing statement that's going to protect you? I'm never going to talk ill about any individual and their advice because they all have a reason for it. But if we can have a line of communication where we can challenge each other, I think we can get to a lot better place and a better result in a faster period to get there than if it's just, I said this and I have to just go with it over here in the gym.
Yeah. It's like these barriers that we build between health and fitness and nutrition
Totally. Yeah.
are not benefiting the client at all. And I think that's just an important point to say, if you're in the flex program or if you're in the one-on-one personal training, you're still having access to this beautiful kind of barrier-free clinical to fitness experience.
Yeah.
So go ahead, go into the one-on-one now.
Well, so like talking about just that exchange of communication, Dr. Allan has certain parameters that he has to follow or certain regulations that you have to follow with HIPAA and keeping certain things confidential. Our clientele will have all of that on his side that our trainers can't see, but there'll be a very specific pass off of information that's on the daily basis of this person has a ruptured Achilles. Like we should probably work on rehab with that first. Let's send them off to professional for that. But then they have like a little plantar fasciitis. That's something that would be in the notes that we can see and read like, okay, the trainers can handle plantar fasciitis. Let's talk about some remedies for that. So I think it's really important that people will see that there will be the communication, but also the communication is protected. Know that you can still have very specific things that are just on Dr. Allan's side of things in the clinic, and certain things will be passed to the trainers. It's not all information, if that makes sense. But then to go back to what you're asking with tier 1, tier 2, and all that, we're kind of creating our tiers where someone will have a more entry level, and that's someone that maybe just needs a little extra push. Maybe they have a little bit tighter budget, whatever it may be. They'll go into this flex training. Flex training is going to be, like I said, their schedule. The trainer will be there on site, but not necessarily one-on-one every single day. And then there will be personal training, independent one-on-one training where you're there with your trainer at all times, every session. That trainer is constantly updating this program to progress from where you're at, say on a Monday to a Wednesday. And that will have a little bit higher price point, but you're going to get a lot more constant and regular feedback from that. And then we'll probably re-diagnose every like 6 weeks is kind of the plan that I'm putting in action right now. And then, we'll just keep moving on that progress.
When you say re-diagnose, what do you mean? Do you mean switching protocols, redoing testing?
Testing. So if we do end up going with more of like a physical test, like this Proteus that we've been talking about, where we can see someone's power outputs, we'll retest every 6 to 8 weeks.
Maybe just explain what that Proteus is.
Yeah, so the Proteus is just, you've probably seen it with some of the professional golfers right now in the PGA. And it's a tool that's being used to, one, increase power, rotational power, especially in athletes, but can also measure power outputs for most exercises. So push, pull, hinge, press, all that. On Dr. Allan's side of things, there's a lot of numbers. Like I have a lot of clients who want to see the numbers. They want to follow their heart rate. They want to see their recovery times. They want to see their sleep scores. They want to see their blood pressure, their cholesterol, all this stuff. It's very evident. It's right there. When it comes to the strength training side of it or the movement and power side of it, there's not a lot of evidence. Like you can't have like direct proof of what your progress or your lack of progress may be. So what this machine does is it can say exactly how much power you're putting out in, say, a squat or overhead press, a row, a rotation, something like that.
Which I think is great because I think for a lot of people who work out often, cardiovascularly, it's really easy to measure how you're doing because you can just do a VO2 max test and see where your score's at. And that will kind of determine how you've been training the last 6, 8, 9 months.
Totally.
But with strength, it's a lot harder other than, looking at yourself in the mirror.
Max. Well, a lot of people for years did 1 rep maxes.
Sure.
We all went through high school where we saw the leaderboard of the squats, the chest press, and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of inherent risk in those lifts. You're going for your 1 rep max, you can tear your pec. You can blow out a knee, something like that. The videos are all over the internet of people doing 1 rep maxes and just screwing themselves up. By doing this Proteus, we're removing or at least reducing that risk. Plus still getting more really fine-tuned measurements of what that power output is.
Yeah. And I think it allows us, like you said, every 6 to 8 weeks to be able to see how is the training actually doing for a specific person.
Totally.
And do we need to make modifications or changes to their protocol?
Yeah.
On Dr. Allan's side, how are you taking some of this information and applying it to maybe some of your yearly checkups and physicals or biannual checkups and physicals?
Sure. So really by quantifying it. So we want to know how much zone 2 exercise people are getting. We want to know how much strength training they're getting. That'll all be quantified through Peter's side of the project. And when people come to see me, it's, we all have recall bias. So they always think they may be eating better than they have been, or exercising more than they have been, or sleeping better than they have been. But in terms of their fitness and their exercise program, this will be concrete. Like, we'll know exactly. And so we can keep people on track as much as we need to, because exercise is such a fundamental pillar of what we're doing here. I wanted to comment a little bit about what Peter was saying, or what he was describing. I think that a lot of what our program is based around is relationships. So when I talk about access to me, access to Peter, it's really a matter of being very familiar with each other, having a personal relationship with all of our clients and our tenants. And through that relationship, we can help them to thrive and really achieve all of their goals. And I anticipate that happening on your side and also in the clinic.
And maybe just explain for us, Dr. Allan, Peter has the different tiers. I know that also correlates on the health side. Mm-hmm. So if someone's in the Flex program, what are they doing with you on a yearly basis? And if someone's in the one-on-one program, what are they doing with you on a yearly basis?
Sure. So it spans a spectrum of services, from just a solitary appointment and evaluation, all the way up to a concierge style practice. For those people who are more interested in just like annual evaluations, what we would do is meet in the clinic, do annual lab tests, define some very clear goals and a plan of care that then that individual would take with them and run with.
And that would be part of the Flex training program that Peter's offering.
Yeah.
Has these kind of two cohesions.
Okay. Yeah. And then from there, it can step up to quarterly visits with myself, or even that concierge level of service where we're interacting on a weekly or sometimes even a daily basis.
And so the one-on-one personal training, that level would be a more quarterly basis with you.
Yeah.
And then would that also be quarterly testing with additional VO2 max tests, RMR, blood panels, things of that nature?
Yeah, things that are helpful. I mean, we don't want to burden people with excessive testing, but anytime it might be helpful in terms of their fitness plan or their medical well-being, they would have access to that, and we would recommend it.
And then the other thing I think that is a really great perk for all the tenants is if they're in either of those programs, they get access to you for emergency medicine. And so if someone has a son who broke their arm, or maybe they got a cut and they need stitches, or maybe they just have a bad flu and they need some sort of antibiotic,
sure,
they would be able to just contact you and be able to get a prescription.
Yeah. Of course, it depends on what the exact problem is. I mean, some are most appropriately dealt with in an emergency department, but most things are easily manageable in clinic or even over the phone. And so the ability just to pick up the phone, contact me, and help me and have me help you troubleshoot whatever problem it is, whether it is just a prescription or not, that is a real advantage. As everybody knows, going to the urgent care or the emergency department is a several-hour endeavor at best, where the reality is that a lot of these things can be solved with 10 minutes on the phone. So,
yeah. And then the other thing that I want to mention that we have is we're going to do these kind of a la carte services that if you want to be able to just access something on a more regular basis, you're able to. And then in the clinic, we also have a treatment room where I know we're planning on doing acupuncture, cupping, massage. Maybe just give us a little background on kind of both of your theses on why people should be doing those type of kind of ad hoc services like acupuncture, massage therapy, cupping, maybe sleeves, more hot cold therapy.
Do you want to dive into that?
Well, I think we found a modern solution to a centuries old issue. Heat exposure has been proven time and time again to be beneficial for an individual. Cold exposure, same thing, within certain timelines and levels. Like, you don't want to be stuck out in the freezing cold for an extended period of time, but brief exposures to cold can have great effects on inflammation, blood sugar utilization, and much more. So if we can take some of these old remedies and give them the modern day twist, I guess would be a way to say it. I think it's going to benefit someone overall. So with better sleep, with less stress, with joint pain, back pain. So many people are suffering from back pain. Like the number one thing that I see in the gyms right now is people all have back pain. I don't think I have a single client that doesn't suffer from back pain. And we're just more stationary and more hinged in the hip than we've ever been before. And from that, we're creating very tight and weak muscles. And so if we can help to release some of these muscles that have gotten tight over time, then we can start to activate the more appropriate muscles on the flip side. So doing things like inflammation reduction by doing the cold therapy, the sleeves, the compression sleeves. If we can do stress relief with the acupuncture and cupping, if we can increase blood flow, all that, like we're gonna give the most modern day treatment that we can, I guess, like find, but we're gonna do it to benefit things that have been around forever.
Mm. Yeah, really a multimodal approach to people's underlying medical problems or fitness problems or fitness obstacles. I think is the key. Not any one modality will fit everybody's needs, but we aim to provide a broad range of services to people, from the more traditional to the non-traditional, meaning like from I anticipate being, offering physical therapy services and massage therapy services, to contrast therapy and acupuncture and cupping services also. And we want to bring that in-house so it's easy for people to access.
I mean, I think we all use those services.
Yeah.
If we can control, I guess, the service itself. Like if I have a really great physical therapist or a massage therapist that I know, I would love to bring them in-house so I can talk to them about specifically what's going on and make sure that the client is seeing the person that I know and trust. If I send them off to a, let's say, massage therapist, and they're doing something that's going to be counterintuitive to their training program or the stress relief, then I'm actually hurting the program instead of benefiting the program. So it's, again, just allowing another pathway of communication to better this person's acute and long-term health.
Yeah. Right. And we have all three of us have consultants and specialists, people who we know and trust, who have expertise that we recommend. And so bringing them in-house is, we have the space to do that, and it's a big advantage for us.
Yeah. I think that two other things we haven't touched on is how we're integrating our kind of holistic health and nutrition program with local organic food. And so one thing is, being part of a member is you get access to the garden room, where we've partnered up with Vitruvian Farms, who are actually going to have a podcast with in a few weeks here. And they're bringing and delivering fresh food from 90 different Wisconsin farmers twice a week on Wednesdays and Saturdays to the building. And so if you're at the clinic or you're working out or you're getting one of these services, on one of those days, you can go pick up all your fresh groceries that are from local, trusted, regenerative, organic farmers. And so I think that's a really big key, because it's both fitness and nutrition that help kind of avoid these long-term chronic problems. The other thing that we had forgotten to mention is the kind of mental well-being. And I know that's something we're working on, but I think what we're thinking is basically we have this treatment room where you're actually able to see a mental clinician to come in and kind of do either psychotherapy or just to sit down with you. And that's something we're still working on.
Right.
With you, Dr. Allan, that we're kind of figuring out exactly who that is and how it integrates with the holistic vision.
Right. And I think that while we aim to offer formal mental health services, just the overall program that we have, with the aspect of relationship building and social connectedness, does a tremendous amount for people's mental health. And so while we may be addressing their mental health formally, there are also these informal avenues to enhancing that.
Yeah, and I think the last thing that I will say, and then I know we're at about time here, is we're working on an app where we can integrate all these different things into one spot, so the tenant actually, or the member, has an easy way to see everything because it's a lot of data. I mean, we're giving them thousands of data points to look at. And so we're trying to have this kind of integrated technology experience as well, where you're just able to log in and see everything from your wearable to how you're sleeping to your DEXA, your latest DEXA scan to your VO2 max to the strength test. So that will be part of the overall kind of vision here.
Yeah.
So I was just saying, I don't even think we touched on the testing that's within the lab itself and the awesome capabilities that in itself is going to have. So we're going to have the bike set up, the treadmill set up. We can test the VO2 max, but people can train for the triathlons, races, whatever may be on those bikes right there and get immediate feedback right there on the TV, on the big screen. That will all then be captured and then passed off to Dr. Allan and myself and my team. And that's something that, I never really had access to when I was training for my multiple Ironmans back in the day. If I did that, I had to rent out a space, had to go out to Verona to gain access to this space. And even in those sessions, I never felt like I really knew what was going on or what I was seeing. And so this will have the ability to tell us right then and there, this is what, your baseline is, this is what you're getting to, this is your power output, all that kind of stuff, which I think is really exciting.
Right. We can really dive into people's unique physiology.
Totally.
And help them to customize their program to hit their goals. I did want to just make a comment that, not everybody is interested in all the data. We have we're talking about a lot of detail here, a lot of like really high tech physiologic testing and diagnostic testing and screening, but that doesn't fit everybody. And I think that for those people who they want to be healthy, they want to enhance their health span, we can help them do that. We can provide that guidance in the background and help people achieve those goals without them having to be personally attending to all of those data points. And for the people who really want that data, it's all accessible to them, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah. I mean, that's the cool thing is that because it's so integrated, really all the tenant has to do is make one decision to enter the program. And then the personal trainer will put together the 6-week plans and they'll consult with you, Dr. Allan, to be able to make sure that all the data points are being incorporated.
Right.
But if they didn't want to, all they would have to look at on a weekly basis is that 6-week plan, which I think is great.
Totally.
Right.
Or we might have people that want to know every single data point and get into all the granular details, and they can also do that.
And, we're happy to give them the raw data if they want.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So as far as next steps here, guys, I know there's probably a ton of people that are interested in this program. What are we doing at Baker's Place that's opening up in a few months here, and then at Neutral Edison that allows people to actually access this stuff?
Sure. Well, the clinic space and what we call the Human Performance Lab are being built out right now. They're going to be housed they'll be co-located in the same physical space. So when people come in to see me, they'll be able to see me in my office. We'll have a physical exam space. We'll have the performance testing equipment right there also. And so this will be open in the summer. And when people either, when they make an appointment, it's readily accessible for them. They can just come in and there's just low barriers to entry. It's easy to make an appointment. It's easy to be seen. It's easy to get the diagnostic testing that you want.
Cool.
Well, then the idea or the hope with all this is to build it out to a point where we can increase the scale and bring it to Edison and Milwaukee with more offerings, more size, more access, all that. Make it truly a wellness club, if you will, at that point. And then for the long term, I see this going as far as wellness retreats, hotels, giving access to as many people as we can, not just those living in the building or within the local vicinity of that space.
Yeah. And the cool thing on that note is we are going to start doing that early on with Baker's Place. Is we're going to allow people to come in, fly into Madison, stay at one of our fully furnished, wonderful Airbnbs in the building, and then they'll be able to do kind of this health weekend, so to speak, where you actually get to do all this testing. You get to see all the data. We put together the plan, and then you go home and you actually implement it. So we are going to start with that in Madison. But in Milwaukee, obviously, it's a little bit greater. And then the idea long term is we do these full retreat centers. I think the other thing to mention is that Madison is only about 10,000 square feet that we're building out with all this stuff. Edison is going to be about 30,000 square feet. So we're tripling down the size. And so really we're kind of hopefully going to learn a lot of great lessons here the next 2 years in Madison and then really apply them in Milwaukee.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, guys. This is great.
Yeah.
Excited to get started.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can't happen soon enough.
That was good practice. And now I'm ready to do the real thing.